Brainbox Cameras, YouTube channel watchers, social media channel tuner inners. Today, as you can see that I've got laid out in front of me, we're talking about lenses. These are the Atlas Orion Anamorphics. So there's a lot of new glass and a lot of new anamorphics in particular in the marketplace right now, and Atlas is probably one of the most talked about. There's everything from the Zelmus Apollo lenses that are not quite shipping yet. There's rumors of a Korean company, Samyang, which is known for their Zine lenses, coming out with a very low-cost anamorphic. And then there's things like the Cooke full-frame anamorphics, as well as their classic standard anamorphics and their special flare anamorphics. These are covering a large range of price points. Not all of these lenses are available yet, but there's a lot of activity in the anamorphic marketplace right now. So with that said, I want to talk a little bit about the Orion anamorphics. Really getting a lot of buzz because of their amazing price point. They're about $8,000 per lens, give or take, which is a reduction in price of 60 to 70% or more when compared to like their higher end alternatives from some of the more established lens makers. Atlas is releasing their lenses in two sets initially. There's the A set that you see here in front of me, which is a 40, 65, and a 100 mil. This set has been shipping for a little while now, in shipping slowly, but they're definitely out in the wild. And then there's the B set, which until now, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't really been delivered into the hands of too many people, which is why I'm really excited today to talk about how we have a set of B lenses here at Brainbox now that are going to live here and that we can make available to all of our clients. So let me pull those out so we can just see all 6 of them on display at the same time. There's a 32, a 50, which would slot in right there, and then the 80 mil. Pull these caps off. So here's the full range of all 6 lenses that are currently available in the Atlas Orion Anamorphic set. Everything from a 32 to a 100 with a pretty good variety of reach in between. So it's really exciting to have all 6 lenses in one place for the first time. The 6 focal lengths give you a very, very versatile range. So this is an excellent set to do a fully featured production. Whatever it is you're shooting, you have a lot of ranges here, so you'll make sure your bases will be covered. The 32 millimeter in particular is nice and impressive because keep in mind when you're doing field of view comparisons to like a standard spherical super 35 millimeter format, the focal lengths are a little bit different. And a 32 millimeter field of view roughly equals on a super 35 format a 16 millimeter in terms of how wide it is in its scope. So this is roughly equivalent to a 16 mil field of view. And keep in mind that with your 2:4:0 aspect ratio, that gives you a very dramatic nice wide for shooting vistas, etc., like Lawrence of Arabia type of stuff. It's really cool. And Atlas is actually doing even more on the wide end, which is where I think the anamorphic lenses really shine with their wides. There's even a 25 millimeter in development. It's just in a prototype phase right now. No word on exactly when it's going to be shipping, but a 25 millimeter will be substantially larger than this with a much larger 138 millimeter front diameter. These are all 114 millimeter fronts. But that will be complementing the set at some point in the future. All right, so let's look at the build quality of these lenses, look at the mechanics, try to get a feel for how well they're made. So let's pick up one to take a look at it. Start with the 50 mil. So these are actually very substantial lenses. They range between 5 and 7 pounds, depending on where in focal length you're at, made out of machined aluminum and steel. We have them with the area standard PL mounts on them, which is probably the most widely used mount that they're gonna go out with. But they are an interchangeable mount system, so you can get other mounts from Atlas for things like, I know like EF, Nikon, I think maybe even as well, and some others. Build quality initially feels very good. The iris ring is smooth for sure. It's a little bit on the stiff side. Focus is pleasing and nice and even, and it requires definitely less stiffness. It's not as quite as buttery smooth as something like a master anamorphic, but that's also to be expected within the price range. Overall though, they look really nice and they feel really hefty. Now looking inside the lens at the optics, each lens has a 14 bladed iris, which creates a very smooth, rounded bokeh. And it's interesting, like when you look at the iris blades from the back of the lens, like I'm doing now, and I'm opening and closing the iris, it's circular. It doesn't have an anamorphic ovalness to it. But when you look at the front, you can see that the anamorphic grouping, the anamorphic element, is a front anamorphic element, meaning it's placed in front of the iris, and it's basically in the chunk, this middle chunk of the lens here. Now, I believe one of the ways that Atlas is making these lenses so affordable is that they're using the same kind of anamorphic grouping for the majority of their focal lengths, and then there's elements placed either before or after those to kind of change the field of view. So like a magnifier or an expander, things like that, to give you your different focal lengths. It's kind of an ingenious way of designing a lens, but to get a lens with this performance at this price point, it's a really cool and innovative way to make a lens. So just for fun, and to compare the size, I want to pull up one of our brand new Kawa Evolution lenses as well, so you can kind of see the difference in size and weight. So this is a new PNS Technique Kawa Evolution 40 mil, and this is the Atlas 40 mil. This is there's a lot more heft here. Obviously the size is a lot bigger. So that's kind of an interesting comparison between two very new to market anamorphic lenses that are out. So what is the real difference in terms of what are you getting for having all this extra size and weight on the front of your camera? The 40 mil Kawa is certainly known to be a bit more on the distorted side. You're gonna get a more character distorted look with more unique vintagey kind of lens flares. This lens was copied off of the original Kawa Anamorphics that were made 40 plus years ago, and that's kind of the design they were trying to emulate. Now, the Atlas 40 mil is going to be a bit more traditional looking, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's also going to have more controlled flares, but predictable flares. And when I say traditional flares, it's more like your typical saturated blue horizontal streaks. Also, because of the size, it allows a little bit easier engineering. So the price point on the Atlas is certainly less than the price point on a Kawa Evolution. Both are different tools. Both have their purposes and their uses. Kawas are great for music videos, Steadicam work, gimbal work. An Atlas Orion is more for the budget-conscious person that wants to shoot more of like a narrative, traditional-looking anamorphic. Let's talk about speed really fast. Every lens, it actually opens up as wide as a T2. That's actually faster than like Cooke anamorphics. So, but you have to ask yourself, like, how usable is it at a T2? In our brief lens tests, you definitely are not at your sharpest point when you're wide open at T2. T4 seems to be about the sweetest area in terms of minimizing things like chromatic aberration, fringing, and also having the maximum sharpness out of your lens. T2 these days is very fast, and with most modern cameras, modern sensors, there's not all that many situations where you want to be that wide open anyway, as well as making it easier on your focus puller. Another really cool feature about these lenses is their close focus abilities. It's not really macro like close focus, but they do let you focus pretty darn close. The 32 millimeter goes up to 1 3/4 feet, 40 is at 2 feet, the 50 is at 2.5 feet, 65, 2 3/4, 80 goes to 3 feet, and the 100, a very respectable 3.5 feet. When we're talking about distortion and things like barrel distortion, every anamorphic lens has a degree of it to some extent or another. These lenses haven't been engineered to completely minimize distortion, and also things like breathing. Every lens is going to have some slight breathing characteristics, and those are always going to be a little bit more magnified in an anamorphic compared to a spherical. With that said, the wider on the focal lengths you go, the more distortion you're going to see. We're going to do some lens tests, some resolution chart tests, as well as some flare tests with all of these here in a little bit, so you'll be able to see all that stuff for yourself. But on the distortion side, there is a little bit more variance. Things like the 32 has a bit more barrel distortion, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's certainly something that viewers are kind of inclined to expect when looking at that aspect ratio, and it doesn't really go as something that you consciously register or notice, but it is there if you are looking for it. So I really want to put the optics of these lenses through their paces. So here at BrainBox, we're going to go shoot some of our focus test charts, which will also kind of give you an idea of the resolution. We'll shoot them both wide open as well as stop down a little bit. And we'll roll through the focus so you can kind of see how the breathing is going to change from focal length to focal length. Also, we're going to do a very, very requested flare test because everybody loves anamorphic flares, and we'll do them across all 6 of the focal lengths at various T-stops, hitting them with a pretty hard flashlight so you can really see how these are going to flare. Overall sharpness is pretty solid throughout all, and matches through all 6 of the lenses, as well as contrast and color in terms of skin tones. The videos that we've been able to see and what we've been able to see in our own tests here should really show that there's great separation between foreground and background, and the skin tones have a nice, pleasing smoothness and slight warmth to them. Overall, the Atlas Anamorphics represent a huge leap forward by a young startup company that's really trying to disrupt the lens marketplace. These represent an excellent value. They're doing things at a price point that no lens has done in history, and they're really kind of generating a lot of buzz in the industry. Are they perfect? No. Do they match up 100% with some of their sister lenses that are 3, 4, 5 times more expensive? No, but for what they do offer and what they offer at that price point, there's a real need and a real market for them. Tons and tons of filmmakers these days are wanting to shoot anamorphic, wanting to grab that super cinematic styling, and for many of them, the higher priced options are just simply not within reach. So Atlas has really stepped up and come to the plate and served a market need that the other manufacturers were neglecting. So we're really excited to have all of these, both the A and the B set, now here at BrainBox. They're for rental right away. Feel free to contact us, email us, call us, whatever you like to do. If you're interested in doing either a free demo with the lenses or setting them up as a reservation for your next project, they're here, they're exciting, and again, thanks for watching.